Hello YouTube, so this video is just about my toolkit here, and this is a toolkit that I use on my BMW F800 GS Adventure. Just thought I'd run through all the tools that I take with me on the bike. This is not really for expeditions, but more just for going out into the countryside in the UK and sometimes going on trails and stuff like that, but nothing kind of around the world worthy. For that I would probably take a little more, not a lot more, but just a few key things. So just thought I'd go through the whole toolbox and you can have a look what I've got. Starting off with the bag itself, which is this, it's actually an East bag, bum bag as we call it in the UK, or a fanny pack in the US. I just chopped the two bits that go around your waist here. And the reason is because Eastpak produce low cost but high quality bags. This is super tough material. The zipper is really tough as well. I've got some of their backpacks and they just last forever, and so this just seemed perfect. The other thing is that it's crushable, so you know, depending on how much stuff you've got in the bag, you can crush it. It's got one bag at the back and one at the front, and I think it was something like £9 here in the UK, or you know, about $12–13. So it was dead cheap, and I use that to carry the tools around and it keeps them safe. In there I always carry around a large bag of Silica Gel. This just keeps everything nice and dry inside there. I replace these every so often as well if they get any moisture in there. This just takes away all the moisture and keeps the tools nice and dry. All the tools are also covered in ACF 50 where appropriate, and oiled where appropriate, so they don't get dried out and stuff. So along with that I carry a small rag. This one is actually just a cloth to use for cleaning glassware and silverware and stuff like that. I find it to be pretty good as a reusable cloth. Always worth having a little rag or something with you as well. Then let's get onto my socket. So I've got my 16mm deep socket for spark plugs. And then on the F800 I found the only sockets you actually need to take with you. I take the 17mm socket for the front wheel. It's way easier having this on you if you're removing the wheel. It does also come with a 17mm open box wrench, but or spanner as we call them, but they're not so useful. I find this one is really good and doesn't you know, balden the actual nut itself. Along with the 17 I carry a 13 and I carry a 10mm. And I also carry an 8mm. Now the 8mm has got one of the ball bearing locks in it, because that's the same one that I also use for all my Torx Bits as well. So I have the 8mm too. Then along with that I have the E12. Now the E12 is for removing the disc brake bolts. You'd also need an E8 Torx bit, which is the negative torque. I don't know if you can see that there. But you'd also theoretically need an E8 to remove the gear shift lever, but in my instance I swapped that out for a hex, so I didn't need to do that because it was a bit of a pointless thing just for one tool to have to be carried around. For that, easy just to swap it over. Along with that I've got this homemade, this is just a spindle key that I've angle grinded in half. And the reason for this is this 19mm fits inside the other side of the front wheel, and the 24 fits over my rear wheel spanner, which is this one here. So that would just fit over there, and that means that I can hold it as the other one's being done up. Now I know that you don't need to use this necessarily, because you can just do up the pinch bolts on the other side, which will pinch it enough to be able to tighten down with the 17mm on the other side. But it's good practice to have this, and it certainly makes getting the front wheel a lot easier if you can put this in and twist the axle to try and get the axle out. It helps to rotate it as you're pulling it out, and also when seating it back in again, just to twist it to make sure it's all the way in. I also have one of these multi-joints for my 3/4 inch drive. This just really helps get in awkward situations, and sometimes means you don't have to take half the fairing off the bike in order to get to a particular location. So let's go on to the Torx Bits. These are the Torx Bits I carry. So I go all the way up to 50 with these, although I don't believe, sorry, I go up to 50. The 50 was supposed to be the bar ends, although not used. I think there is a 50 somewhere in the engine casing, but not really needed for like lightweight servicing, or you know, the normal things you'd be doing on your bike if you're just fixing it without having to really, you know, take it into a garage or do some serious work on it. Nevertheless, it's so tiny and used on other BMWs and people that I ride with, I feel like I could carry that as a spare. and then I carry 45, 40, 30, 25 and 20 in those Torx Bits. These are super hard chrome, and you know, they're very durable. They are worth oiling, these though. It'll just spray with WD-40 because they will rust because they're not stainless or anything. I also carry one of these right angle things for topping up the air. This also is where I keep my spare valve in there. So using this, which is another homemade tool, this is a valve key, a valve key. This would have been a much longer piece, like this sort of big. I just chopped it in half, and that's all I need. You get more than enough purchase on that to unscrew. So that's where I keep the spare, which is also in there if that was to ever go wrong. And this has a little dust cap on it as well, so that just keeps that all sealed away, so that's never going to get attacked by the elements. This is really handy though for putting onto the bike, and if you're topping up at a garage or something with air, it makes that dead easy. And again, all these tools are just for sort of, you know, daily living and, you know, going on fun rides in the UK and stuff, not for necessarily going around the world. But anyway, yeah, this is an important tool to have. So that's the thing for the valve extraction key. Then moving on, we've got more Torx Bits here. This is actually just a sort of almost like a penknife set of them. These are really handy too. I mean, these go down some of the sizes. T10 I don't carry in this. T10 is used, I think, in the headlamp on the F800. But yeah, it's a handy piece to have, and it's good with the bike being so reliant on Torx, and Torx being quite a weird thing to try and bodge in the wild. It's worth having a sort of a couple of spares of these. You know, especially you don't want to wear one out, or if there's two people working on something, one can be doing the fairing on one side and one can be doing the other if you need to speed it up if it's pouring with rain. So carry that. This is the dreaded spark plug extraction tool. It makes pulling the spark plugs a million times easier. So you just slot it over and pull them out. If you really get in trouble with them and you have the purchase, you can put something through here, you know, like one of these screws, and help that to, you know, yank on them. It's an amazing tool, and I'll put a link in the description as to where you can buy them. There's a few companies that make them, some in the US, some in the UK. You shouldn't pay too much for them though. But yeah, you do need to buy that one as a specific, really. Then we've got this, which I bought from a bike shop ages ago. I actually don't know the brand of this. I'm sure if you just hunt around for Allen Key or Hex tools, you might be able to find it just on Google image search. But yeah, this is a really useful thing. You can get a lot of purchase with this. And I've found that also the fact that these rotate mean that you could put something in and you can use this like a tiny T-bar if you're just, you know, trying to get something out quickly. It's helpful for that. So that's how I change my gear shift lever and adjust that as well. Then moving on, we've got some bits here that I'll come on to in a second. We'll go through these tools up here first. So I've got a adjustable spanner or a adjustable box wrench. This is a Basho one. I really like the Basho tools. They're beautifully made and they really last. This is a pretty small one. It's only a 6" or 150 mils. But I find that, you know, for anything that I don't already have the open box wrench for, this will nicely do the job. And yeah, you know, I think this is a fine enough size. If I really need to get extra purchase on them, you know, you can come right at the back, and that can help. Or, you know, you can always go down the route of you know, putting something else through here and using that to, you know, get extra leverage on. But that's pretty good, that one. Then open box wrench. I've got some gaff tape around here that's just wound up, which is a bit of an old trick. I've got 12 and 13. 13, of course, is for adjusting the chain tension at the back. And then I've got 8 and 10. This is actually an Allen Key, a box wrench, sorry, that came with my old 1200, and I just hung on to it. I forgot I took it out of the bike. So there's that. Then I've got my Brit tool T extension here for 3/8. That's really helpful, and the 3/8 extension here. Some electrical tape in the same manner, round wound here. So these two go together. These are all just. These bits are Halford's Advanced parts. I find them to be really good. These are all Halford's Advanced as well, these sockets. I've got a whole set, and then I just bought the individuals for the ones I need, so that I didn't take them out of my garage set. I just have these as spares. So they're great. This is a air pressure test, so we just have it in PSI here. This comes out, you just push it on the wheel and it shows you what you got. It's so light, it literally doesn't weigh anything. It weighs about as much as a pencil. This is plastic, although it looks metal. And you know, they really work. If you just need to check it quickly, you get a good reading on it, and it's pretty accurate. So that'll do fine for me. Obviously, you know, with there being so many garages in the UK where you can check your tyres and stuff, I found that that's certainly good enough, especially if you get a flat and you just want to check there's some pressure in there. I then carry a Leatherman Wave multi-tool, so this gives me my pliers, my pincers, a great set of grippers here as well. I also get a decent set of scissors. They look small, but they're incredibly sharp and really good, and I keep those sharp as well. You then got a tiny screwdriver, Phillips and flat, and you've got all the sort of typical bottle opener and a wider. This doubles as a screwdriver, but also very useful for prizing and that kind of thing as well. And then on the other side you've got the other screwdriver set. I've got the whole load of bits for these, although I just don't need to carry them on the bike. It's if I'm going off camping, I might stick them in the camping bag and know that I've got the Leatherman on my bike too. In addition to that, obviously you've got the the knife and the saw. You've got that sort of saw blade there. You've got a file, a metal file, extremely handy to have on the bike. That's sharp as well. This knife on the other side, and we've got another saw there, and knife there. Then moving on, we've got this lovely Basho 3/8 Ratchet. This is a really well made piece of kit. I've had this for ages, and it just works so well. It's a joy to use because I keep all this stuff on the bike whenever I go and service the bike or do any work on it. I use all these tools. I know a lot of people say the same thing, just to try and only have the tools on your bike, and then you soon realise what you're missing and what you're not missing. I'd really recommend that too. This is a great tool and worth spending the money on this, because this will be the one thing, if it lets you down or the teeth break or something, you bought a cheap one, you'll really kick yourself. By carrying fewer tools and just what you need, you can afford a couple of luxuries, and this would be one of them. So then in addition to that, I carry these two, which are basically tyre irons. This one's just a fairly cheap ordinary tyre iron. I think it was about £8 or £9 from eBay. It's got a rubber coated end here, which is a bit nicer on the hands if it's freezing. With these two and the bead breaking technique of using your side stand, which if you haven't seen, you should search on YouTube for and just have a look. You can get tyres off. It's not as easy as having huge great irons or a machine or whatever, but it can be done, and if you're in a bind and you need to do it, it's worth doing. I was although a lot of my rides are just in the UK, it's easy to get in a place where there's no signal and you find yourself with a flat tyre or whatever, and it's you either get yourself out of trouble or it's a long walk in the rain and trying to call recovery and whatever, and it can be a nightmare. So it's really nice to be self-sufficient with these things and just get yourself back on the road and sort yourself out. Now this one, which I'll put a link to below, also has this amazing 24mm sort of open-end socket, which is a wrench as well. This is really helpful because it's the way that I remove the rear axle bolt for the rear wheel. But also because of this tool which I showed you earlier, it doubles as the 19mm for the front wheel too. So super useful. There's 24 there. Theoretically, I guess you could make this into other things as well. You could potentially make it the 13, but it's a bit bulky, and so I like to keep that the way it is, and that just seems like a good system. I've got some Torx luggage straps. I just keep these in the tool bag there. Really useful for holding the front wheel onto the centre stand if you're doing some work or that kind of thing. Also just for holding on luggage, what they're made for. So that's good. I've got a few sizes of zip ties here. Obviously, if I was going on a big expedition or travelling further afield into places where it's harder to sort yourself out, then I would be carrying a lot more of these, because these are super useful things. But I've got a few sort of smaller sized ones that are long, smaller sized ones that are a bit shorter, and then some of these sort of medium sized ones here. I've also just got some steel wire here, really helpful for just if an exhaust is hanging off or whatever, you can just tie it back up with this. It won't melt or anything because it's steel wire, and it will just get you to where you need to go, and you can then do a proper fix a bit later on. In addition, I also carry some, this is just an insert for our hot glue stick. This one here it's just helpful because you can melt it with a lighter, or even, you know, if the exhaust hot, use a bit of that. But yeah, you can you know, just make minor repairs, or just seal up electrical components which might have got a nick in them or whatever you're worried about. Obviously the best thing to do is just have a lighter with you just to melt some of this away. But yeah, you can, you know, use a bit of steel wire, wrap it around the exhaust, let it get hot, holding it with, you know, your rag. You can then touch it on here and melt some bits off. There's always a way if you think it through logically. I carry the blue Loctite. The blue Loctite's used mostly on the bike. The red Loctite's used in a few places, but the blue will get you through for the time being. So yeah, I carry this one and use that. It's great stuff. I buy the original Loctite because it's worth spending the money on that. And then also here's some Loctite copper grease. Now this is just useful because I used to buy the sort of toothpaste tubes of these. But this actually, it comes in a slightly harder form than the squeezy tubes, but it's still the same product. And because it's in this glue stick style thing, it doesn't end up making a mess. And with the cap on it, even if this gets bashed and smashed against plastic tools, metal tools against the plastic, you know, you're still okay. It doesn't start leaking out. The little toothpaste tubes I found will sometimes get a tiny nick in them from something here. And then before you know it, all the tools are covered in it, and it's a nightmare to get off that stuff. So worth having them in these little tubes, and they're not expensive, so worth buying. And then finally we come onto these tools. So if I push these out of the way a little bit, these tools here are the ones that actually live permanently on the bike. Now this lives under the seat, which I can show you now on another little video. And these live under the seat in a space where I think the manual is meant to be stored, although I store my manual as a PDF on my phone. And in here, I can open it up, it's just in a clear pencil case. I have a small puncture repair kit, which is just exactly what I need. I also keep this sealed in a bag because the rubber theoretically can perish and stuff. So I've got a couple of extra valves there too. I've got a few little rubber tubes, a thing for scuffing up the tyre, a couple of patches in various sizes, and some rubber cement glue. And that just lives inside this little box. In addition to that, we have 2 of these room protectors. Now you can buy these room protectors super cheap online. I got some on eBay, I think £2, and it came with 2 long orange bars of these. And I just chopped them in half and thought I only really need 1 because, you know, unless you're incredibly inaccurate, you can use that, prise, get the tyre away, and then once it's away and you've done the next one, you can pull this one out and use it again over here. So I find these to be more than enough size-wise. I've then got this thing which just assists with, you know, in combination with this sometimes, can just get you that angle to help you dole in these, which are the CO2 bottles. Now this red thing on here is just to protect your fingers because these do get cold when you use them. This just screws in, and once you screwed it in, you'll feel it will kind of grip, and then you've got one final turn. That final turn is the one that will pierce the top here, and all the gas will come out and into your tyre after you've hopefully correctly repaired it. So yeah, that's what that kit is, and that plus these bits, which are the stock screwdriver. So you've got a flat and a Phillips, which a larger size Phillips, and then on this one you've got another insert which is a smaller size Phillips, and a Torx. This is useful for the fairing, and actually not a bad tool. Not the greatest, but this Torx is helpful. Again, worth having 1, 2, 3 of that size because it's the fairing and it's all over the bike. It's worth having them. So these live under the seat as part of the stock toolkit, as does this slightly useless T40 because it's not the one that's used to actually get the pinch bolts on the front wheel, which I thought would have been a more useful Torx to have. But anyway, that lives on the bike too because that's just part of the stock kit. But to add to that, I put the T45, and I just bought this. This is a Draper Torx. It came as part of a set. But I leave this permanently on the bike because if I don't take any of this toolkit here with me, and that all lives in that bag, what it means is that this stuff is always on the bike. And even if I'm just going somewhere very locally and it's town riding, I still know I can actually change a puncture, which is the most important thing. I can get the front wheel and rear wheel off using that pinch bolt technique, because they also give you this 17 mil open wrench. So I could get the front wheel off using that, I could get the tyre off, I could repair the puncture, and I could put it back together again and do up the pinch bolts and undo them with this here. So this I consider to be my absolute bare minimum, just to be able to repair a puncture, which, you know, if you're living in cities or you're riding around, it can be so debilitating and such a pain in the neck, and it just gets you away from that. You can at least ride to a garage or somewhere where you could potentially store your bike or lock it up or whatever, and you're not just stuck on the side of the road, wherever that might be. So this is the absolute bare minimum, even if it's just popping out for a pint of milk. But anytime I go on a ride any more serious than just for the pint of milk, then all the rest of the stuff comes along with me too. And just to show you what it all looks like packed up, here you go. Done. So there it is. So that's the bag all packed. Yeah, and it's a pretty small size, as you can see. It packs down nicely, and I just chuck this in the top box or in my side. I investigated trying to attach this to the bike using a tractor manual instructional tube, or, you know, trying to use one of those screw-up ones. Unfortunately, because of the shape of the fuel tanks on the rear of the GS Adventure, the F800, there's not a great mounting point for it, and I thought about mounting it to the top box itself, but actually it's just easy enough to chuck this in the top box or put it in one of my bags, and it's easy access, and that's how I just like to do it. To show you the weight, I've got a set of scales here, so we turn them on. This is in kilograms, this one. So we'll look at this, we're looking at just over 2, so 2.083 kilograms, or 2.09. So that's the weight of that bag. The Puncture Repair Kit here comes in at 308 grams, so really not a lot there. And then these two tyre irons weigh 284 grams, and then you've got your original toolkit parts here, which weigh 225 grams. So I hope that helps, and if there's any questions, please drop them in the description below and I'll do my best to answer. But yeah, I hope you find this useful, and you know, I know there's a lot of other toolkit videos out there. My suggestion to you is to watch as many as possible and build your own, but my biggest recommendation of all is to use this toolkit and this toolkit alone to try and fix your bike. And you, as you get more and more confident doing it, you'll realise what tools you'll need and what tools you don't, and how you can kind of custom build bits. This philosophy, although it applies to the F800 GS, this philosophy applies to all bikes, and previous bikes I've had, you know, I've used the same philosophy. And so when I get a new bike, I go out, I work on it for a few days, work out what tools I don't and do need, and there we go, we're a win. Thanks for watching, I hope you found this useful. Bye bye.